When mirrors fall, the full story. Sometimes stories don't start with loud words, but with silence, the kind of silence that hurts more than a strike. I always thought silence was safety, a refuge, a chance to hide from the world. But in childhood, I learned long ago, silence can also destroy. I was 8 when I first overheard my father saying, "One child in a family is already too much." He thought I was asleep. Back then, I still believed adults spoke nonsense when they were angry, that words were just words. Years passed. I am now 28, and I know exactly, words can break the backbone of your soul. My name is Elias Marrow, and all my life I was in the shadow. Quiet, calm, too soft for the harsh world, and too unwelcome for my own father, Leonard Marrow, a man whose ambitions could be measured in skyscrapers. My brother Ryan won competitions, my sister Emma shone on stage, and I loved books and children. So I became a teacher, and so I became a disappointment. My father said it openly, as if savoring the taste of humiliation. A teacher? That's where people with no dreams end up. But he was wrong. I had a dream. I just wanted to be someone he didn't need to fear. The evening that started everything seemed ordinary. It was my father's 50th year celebration at Marrow Tech. Half the city came to congratulate the business legend. He hadn't invited me. I came at my sister's insistence. She said it was the right thing to do. I entered quietly. Light, glass, music, the sparkle of expensive smiles. My father stood on the stage, tall, confident, adored by the crowd. And at some moment, his gaze fell on me. He laughed loudly, too loudly. "And here's my son. Well, the one who chose to earn pennies and disgrace the family name." People froze. No one knew whether to laugh or stay silent. I felt something break inside, not painfully, but quietly, like a branch snapping under snow. I was about to leave, just turn around and walk out of his life forever. But something happened he didn't expect. The man sitting near the stage, Chairman Owen Harper, suddenly recognized me. He stood, looked straight at me. "Wait, are you Elias Marrow, the EM who submitted the internal audit report?" The silence cut through the hall. My father turned pale. All eyes shifted toward me. "Yes," I replied calmly. "So you are the one," Harper said coldly. "Today, we received the full report of financial violations in Leonard Marrow's department. And the investigation you led, impeccable." A murmur ran through the crowd. My father looked at me as if he were seeing me for the first time. Fear mixed with disbelief in his eyes. Harper continued, "The board is here tonight. We need to discuss this immediately." My father tried to speak, but only croaked. I did not rejoice. I did not smile. I simply stood, for the first time, taller than he ever saw me. Later, outside the hall, he caught up to me in the corridor. No one was around. Just 2 meters of silence between father and son. "You did this," he whispered. "You ruined me." "No, father," I said calmly. "I only removed the mirror you hid behind all your life." He trembled. Every muscle in his face spoke of someone who finally had no defense. "Why? Why didn't you come to me?" he whispered. I looked him in the eyes of the man who once broke me and was now himself broken. "You never listened. You only broke me. And one day, I simply stopped hoping you'd ever see me." He dropped his gaze. So slowly, as if this gesture weighed a ton. That night, he was suspended. The audit confirmed everything. Embezzlement, bonuses, forgery. His name was removed from the gold plaque at the entrance. My life finally felt lighter. Not better, not brighter, just lighter. Like a stone I carried for 20 years had been lifted. People often say revenge is fire, but I learned the truth myself. Revenge is a mirror. And the deepest cracks are not on the glass, but in the one who sees himself clearly for the first time. Months passed. My father tried to rebuild his life. Lawsuits, apologies, attempts to prove he was a victim of circumstances. The truth remained solid, immovable. He had to leave the company he once believed was the extension of his ego. We never spoke again. And one morning, when I first woke up without the weight in my chest, I realized this story was never about destruction. It was about freedom. About the fact that sometimes to become yourself, you must stop being someone else's reflection. And that was my only real vengeance. 7 years passed. 7 long, strange, quiet years, the kind you don't notice on the calendar, but feel inside like rings in an old tree. My life had changed. I was no longer just a teacher. After the investigation, I was invited to the Department of Educational Reform. I worked with children who had experienced what I once did. No voice, no support, no love. I taught them to hear themselves. Sometimes at night, when the city slept, I thought of my father. Not with hatred, not with anger, with something else. A weary emptiness, like the trace of a bandage long removed. He had disappeared from my life completely. I didn't know where he was, how he lived, whether he was happy or breaking apart. Sometimes the news mentioned a bankrupt business, selling his house, scandals, but it all felt like another universe. And then one autumn evening, cold, leaves rustling like old letters, I received a letter. A real letter. Paper, uneven handwriting. Elias, if you have an hour, I need to see you. Leonard Marrow. I read it 5 times, not from surprise, but from the feeling that the world had suddenly torn its fabric. I went, not for him, for myself. For the boy who once was told he was too much. He lived in a small house on the outskirts. The windows looked as tired as people do when they've lost everything. I knocked softly. The man who opened the door was not the one I remembered. Not a giant, not a monument. An old man, aged before his time, bent, hands trembling as if winter had settled in them. And his eyes. No pride, no anger. Just hollow emptiness and fear. Fear of the one he once considered weak. Elias? He barely whispered. You came. I nodded. We went inside. The house was silent, too silent. The kind of silence where you hear not clocks, but conscience. On the table, a half-drunk tea and a stack of photos. Mine, Ryan's, Emma's. Even childhood drawings I thought he had thrown away. He sat across from me, as if afraid I might vanish. You've probably heard, he began softly. I've lost everything. I know. He nodded slowly, heavily. I thought strength was power, money, name. But when all that disappeared, he looked at his hands as if wanting to hide them. I realized that real strength is people you can call when you feel small. He looked at me. And I had no one. No one but you. I was silent. Not because I didn't know what to say. I was afraid of my own breath. He continued. I was a bad father. Not strict, not demanding, just bad. I broke you because you were unlike me. Because I saw in you what I could never reach myself. He covered his face with his hands. You were better. Too much better for me to handle. My throat tightened. Not from pity, but because truth sometimes sounds like a crack in old walls. I wrote this letter for 3 weeks, he admitted. Tore up 20 sheets. Didn't know how a man like me could ask for forgiveness. He looked at me as if he were afraid of being seen. I'm not asking for time back. I'm not asking to be forgotten. I just wanted to see you one more time. Wanted to say you became what I dreamed to be, only I didn't understand it. I inhaled deeply, so deeply it felt like the air cut inside me, and I said, I didn't come to judge you. I didn't come to hear apologies. I came because I also needed to put a period. He trembled. And what period is that? He whispered. I looked him in the eyes of the man who once broke me, and now himself was broken. The period is this. I no longer live in your shadow. I no longer live in your pain. I have grown. And you, you are only now starting to see." He covered his face with his hands, not crying, just sitting quietly, finally allowing himself to be small. I didn't hug him. I didn't forgive him, but I also didn't turn away. Sometimes people think forgiveness is an embrace. It isn't. Sometimes forgiveness is not carrying someone else's mistakes anymore. Before leaving, he asked, "Will we meet again?" I answered honestly, "We'll see." I don't close the door, but I can't promise I'll open it quickly. He nodded as if he understood. When I stepped outside, the air was cold, but light. For the first time, I felt free. Not from him, but from the pain that had lived inside me for so many years. And in that silence, which no longer hurt, I finally heard myself, and that, I realized, was far more important than hearing anyone else.